Good afternoon. Today I'm going to be reviewing the Geya G78065. This watch is available from GeyaWatches.com for $500 which is €431 respectively. So firstly, let's look at the box that the watch comes in, and then I'll talk you through the specifications of the piece. So the watch comes in a watch box, which is housed inside this outer blue cardboard box. On the lid to the outer box, we have the Geya logo and the brand motto, Moments for Life. So I remove the lid, which is a snug fit to the base. Pulls down the flap, and inside you can see the watch box is protected by this white fabric. So I'll take out the watch box and show it to you. And I'll also remove the white fabric because I want to show you another detail. In the base of the outer box, there's also a cutout which houses the items which I'll show you. So matte blue cardboard watch box. Again, we have the Geya logo and brand motto, and as you can see, it's very well presented, very well finished, albeit it's made from cardboard. At this price point, €431, I'd prefer to see a plastic watch box, or alternatively a watch box which is vinyl or PU leather coated, alternatively a vinyl or PU leather watch roll. But however, one has to be magnanimous. This is a low tier piece between €0 and €500, therefore cardboard watch boxes are acceptable. Stainless steel hardware, mirror polished lock, so one opens the lock, which is secure. Spring-loaded hinge lid, and the interior is fully upholstered to a good standard with contrasting cream vinyl PU plastic. So underside of the hinge lid we have the logo and Moments for Life motto. Base is also upholstered with blue and also cream vinyl, and there's a cutout in the centre section which houses the padded pillow cushion which the watch sits upon. Again, it's upholstered to a good standard in white vinyl. So nice snug fit, good presentation, and also does a good job of protecting the watch in shipping. With regards to items that come with the piece, this is the owner's instruction manual, clear concise diagrams. The instructions are in English and it's also bilingual, translated into Chinese. Details the operation of the movement used. Now, Geya do not specify the specifications of the movement on their website, GeyaWatches.com. However, they do refer to the movement as the Geya Caliber 3A automatic, and I have researched as much of the specification from the movement I can myself. But it would be beneficial if they did detail the specification of the movement on their website, but I will detail what I can nonetheless. One also gets this plastic warranty card, and I'm pleased to report the watch is covered by a 2-year international warranty. And on the reverse, there's space to stamp the retailer stamp, date of purchase, model number and reference number, albeit Geya leave this blank. However, I can confirm from the date of purchase they do activate the 2-year international warranty. I want to give due credit to Geya here because often low-tier Chinese brands between €0 and €500 price point only cover their watches with a 12-month international warranty. 2 years international warranty is the industry standard for mid-tier pieces between €500 and €5,000 respectively. So it's very unusual at €431 price point to see 2 years of warranty, and I think it's a credit to Geya. And lastly, one also gets this cardboard tag. We have Geya in gilt and also Geya in Mandarin or Chinese, and on the reverse it details the full reference number of the piece. So with regards to the specifications of the piece, this Geya G78065 is clearly an homage to the Mille 6702 automatic sprint. The 6702 automatic sprint was made specifically by Mille for the South African sprinter Wayne van Niekerk. Wayne van Niekerk is an Olympian and he is a 200 metre and 400 metre sprinter, and they've made the piece the same as the colours of the Mille 6702 automatic sprint. So we have the South African flag colours on the dial, and also the case, which is carbon fibre, is green and yellow as per the original, and also the FKM floor rubber strap is the same green. So South African colours as per the Mille 6702 automatic sprint worn by Wayne van Niekerk. With regards to the dimensions, we have a 43.5mm case diameter, we have a lug-to-lug measurement of 45.9mm, a thickness of 17.2mm, and a lug width of 20mm. The FKM floor rubber strap tapers from the lugs down to the deployant clasp. Solid 316L grade stainless steel deployant, and it's debossed with Geya. So it's brushed satin finished into a beautiful lustre, and then it is black PVD coated as per the flanks of the case, because the mid case of the piece is also made from 316L grade stainless steel, brushed satin finished, and then black PVD coated. So quality of the black PVD coating is excellent, and the deployant has a leaf spring going through it, so it's spring loaded. One closes the right hand portion first, clicks closed, and then the left hand portion overlaps it with a buckle. Works very well, easy to resize because the spigot of the buckle engages very well with the FKM floor rubber strap holes, and this will fit from a 6 to a 7.5 inch wrist size. 2 keepers, and I've seen this design before on FKM floor rubber straps. I like it because we have 2 teeth on the left and the right hand flank, and the first keeper, rather than being fixed, it engages in between the teeth and it's very secure. It doesn't accidentally move out of position, but you can adjust it. For example, if you have a shorter wrist size and you prefer to have both keepers further down the strap, you can move the first keeper rather than being fixed. So that's beneficial if you have a smaller 6 to 7 inch wrist, for example. But if you have a larger wrist, you can engage it between the pairs of teeth. So 2 keepers are correctly proportioned and they slide up and down the strap very well. We have a curved tonneau crystal. So it's double domed, so curved on the underside, curved on the top side, and it has AR coating on the underside. And the anti-reflective coating does an outstanding job of reducing the glare and the highly reflective nature of the silver mirror polished skeletonized handset. And also we have applied mirror polished indices around the edge of the dial, and the AR coating works very well in reducing the reflective property. Also, the dial is skeletonized and it's matte grey or anthracite. Now, you'll note that there are skeletonized gears, and I just want to clarify, the gears are there for decorative purposes. They're actually fake. So, for example, when I rotate the crown, one would expect to see the gears rotating, the winding gears, but they're actually just there for aesthetic reasons. They're there for decorative purposes. They don't actually drive the automatic caliber used, because they've clearly tried to make this piece look as close to the Richard Mille 6702 automatic spring, which it is an homage to, and therefore they've copied the design of the skeletonized bridges and the layout of the gearing to make it look visually very similar, but the gears really do not serve any purpose other than aesthetics. So that's something I want you to note. So to clarify, this piece is made from carbon fibre and 316L grade stainless steel. So the top bezel around the tonneau sapphire crystal, which is also tonneau cased, this bezel is made from carbon fibre, which is moulded in green and yellow. Also the case back is made from carbon fibre. Just bear with me, the keeper is engaged into it. There we are. So I'll just turn the strap inside out so you'll see it better. So case back is also made from carbon fibre, which is moulded in green and yellow, and the exhibition case back is glazed with sapphire crystal. There's no AR coating on the back, but the mid case is made from solid 316L grade stainless steel, which is brush satin finished and then black PVD coated as per the deployants, and they've done a good job of the black PVD coating. So it's a mixture. We've got carbon fibre bezel, mid case is 316L stainless steel, and then the case back is made from carbon fibre, which reduces the heft of the piece. So let's test the crown execution. So we've got a centre section which is embossed with a star, and that is matte satin finished, and then around it, that's solid 316L grade stainless steel. Around it we've got a 316L grade stainless steel ring which is knurled finish, and that is anodized green to complement the case, and it is large as per the Richard Mille 6702 automatic sprint, which this is an homage to, so it does look visually similar to it, and it is correctly proportioned for manual winding. So just bear with me, I'll do back up the deployants and then we'll test the push-pull crown execution. Now, as I've detailed, Geya do not specify the specifications of the movement used in this piece, which they call the Caliber 3A automatic. But we'll test the crown and then I'll detail the movement specifications as much as I can. So in the closed position, it provides an effective hermetic seal to 50 metres, which is perfectly acceptable for a daily wear piece. Feels smooth to manually wind. One can feel the tension in the mainspring gradually building up to its maximum 40-hour power reserve. So it doesn't feel rough or gritty, doesn't feel too stiff, and due to the crown being knurled and large diameter, it's easy to get good purchase with one's index finger and thumb. So it actually feels pleasant to manually wind. It doesn't feel rough or gritty as per a PT5000. In terms of smoothness, it feels very similar to a Seiko NH35A, and in terms of the resistance or the torsion of the mainspring building up, it builds up rather like an NH35A. It's got that kind of feeling to it, so it does feel pleasant to manually wind. Now, to check the hacking and the time setting, it's difficult to get purchase on the crown wearing a gloved hand, because the crown is partially recessed between the carbon fibre bezel and also the carbon fibre case back, and therefore it's difficult to actually get a grip, but I'm going to do it without a glove on. And there you can see it has hacking. The contrasting yellow arrowhead tip to the second hand has now stopped dead, so just bear with me, I'll put my glove back on and continue. So it is possible to pull out the crown easily when you have a bare hand, but wearing a glove it's difficult to get a grip of it because it's recessed. So we're now in the time setting position, so has hacking. Now it does feel stiff, it feels heavier. Now it doesn't feel rough or gritty, but there is resistance to it, the gearing, and it feels stiffer than an NH35A, also feels stiffer than an SW200-1 or a 9015. It's got more resistance. Both clockwise and anti-clockwise feel the same. It doesn't feel gritty or rough, but it just has friction to the gearing, and this indicates poor quality tolerances in the meshing of the gearing, because if the gears are cut with precision and excellent tolerances, therefore that makes the winding gears mesh well and lowers the friction, so minimal resistance. It feels smooth, so it does feel smooth but just feels firm. That's the point I'm making. So but the thing I like about it is it doesn't have a lot of backplay. When you rotate the knurled crown clockwise and anti-clockwise, you don't need to take up a lot of slack, so there's an almost immediate response to the skeletonized minute hand, which is good, so you don't need to take up a lot of slack. In terms of backplay, very similar to an NH35A, which feels good. Pushing it back in, it's got a nice positive click, and as you can see the second hand hasn't restarted, and what I found is if you give it a tap on the side of the case, that activates the movement. The rotor begins to spin around, and you can see the yellow second hand begins to sweep around at the characteristic stutter or judder of 3 Hz. So this movement runs at 21,600 vibrations per hour and a frequency of 3 Hz. You'll know from my previous reviews I prefer the smoother sweep of 4 Hz, such as a 9015 or an SW200-1, versus the stutter or judder of 3 Hz movement, such as the NH35A. So this runs at 21,600, and therefore we have the 3 Hz stutter or judder, rather like a Seiko NH35A. That's just the way it is. So that's something to note. When you push back in the crown, when the winding stem enters the calibre, sometimes the movement doesn't restart, so you need to tap it on the sides to get the rotor to spin, and then it will restart every single time. So that's a characteristic of the movement they're using, which they're calling the Geya Calibre 3A automatic, which is skeletonized. So setting the time works well, manual winding works well, hacking works well, but in order to restart, you need to tap the flank of the case. That's something to note. So let's look at the exhibition case back. Now I'm just going to undo the deployance, because then you'll be able to see it better. Now, as you can see, this is deceptive because this is an automatic, and you're going to be thinking, well, where's the rotor? The rotor is actually hidden beneath this, and what we have here are decorative gears, or one could say fake gears, because they don't serve any mechanical purpose. So just to demonstrate, when I rotate the crown in the manual wind position, rotating it clockwise, you can see none of the gears rotate because they're just there for decorative purposes. What they've done is they've screwed a plate above the rotor, and it has gears set into it, and they're skeletonized, and this really is to make it look like a Mille 6702 automatic sprint, which this is an homage to. So we have skeletonized bridges to the movement, and this plate is also skeletonized, and the gears, the layout of the gears is done as per the Mille 6702, but beneath it is actually a rotor. And you can't really see it because of the, even though it's skeletonized, but when you spin it, you can actually see the rotor moving around beneath this fake plate with the fake gears, or the decorative gears. So it is actually an automatic, although it looks more like a quartz, because you can see the rotor isn't visible. I think they should delete this. Delete the fake main plate, the fake jewels and the fake gears, and simply have the rotor visible. Yes, I appreciate this is an homage to the Mille 6702 automatic sprint, and we have the same on the front because we have the skeletonized bridges, and then we have these gears which aren't actually winding gears, they're just there for decorative purposes because they're in the same layout, the same orientation as the Mille, which this is an homage to, and they've also done the same with the layout of the gears on the back, but you can see the rotor does actually rotate beneath this plate. I think they should just delete the plate because it would be aesthetically pleasing to see the rotor, but that's the way it is. So exhibition case back is flat, glazed with sapphire crystal. There's no AR coating on the underside, but I like it's perfectly flat, as you can see. Benefit of that is the carbon fibre case back is very smooth, it's very flat, and it has slight curvature to it, but it's not as curved as the tonneau bezel on the top of the case. They've also done a very good job of the moulding, because carbon fibre is difficult to work with, but what they have is they have embossed Geya Customise, and also it says Collector's Edition Water Resistant 50M, which is 50 metres, and then we have the reference number of the piece, so it's good. Quality of the moulding is good, and the edges of the flanks are profiled rather like a Richard Mille, but there's no sharp edge to the undercuts to the flanks, which is good because it doesn't feel sharp, it doesn't scratch the wrist, and the sapphire crystal is perfectly flat, so it does feel very smooth and therefore enhances comfort level and feel good factor. So quality of the finishing to the carbon fibre case back is good, and the proportion of this sapphire crystal glazing is also good. 50 metres is perfectly acceptable, and we have these stainless steel screws which screw together the carbon fibre case back with the carbon fibre bezel through the stainless steel mid case. So they've done a very good job of the case back. Now, in order to remove this FKM floor rubber strap, which has a 20mm lug width, you have to unscrew the screws, because as you can see, it doesn't have pierced lugs on the tonneau case, and there are no visible spring bars. For example, we don't have quick release stainless steel spring bars or standard spring bars. The only way to withdraw this integrated FKM floor rubber strap is to unscrew the top pair of screws and the lower pair of screws on the tonneau case, and then that allows you to withdraw the FKM integrated floor rubber strap. But that's a negative, because that makes it difficult to exchange this strap for an alternative from Geya, for example, if you want to change the colour, because you have to unscrew the screws. There are no spring bars. That's something to note. But case back is good. Carbon fibre finishing, or the moulding, is good. So just bear with me, I'll do back up the deployment in the third hole to suit my 8-inch wrist, and then I'll give you a wrist shot. Right, now just bear with me, I'm going to move the two keepers into position first. So I'll engage the first one in between the teeth. Right, so that's now ready. So you have to close, it is handed, you have to close the right hand portion first, and the spring-loaded leaf spring works well, snap shut with a nice positive click, and then you close the left hand portion, as you can see, with a buckle, and then it overlaps. So as you can see, the end of the strap is slightly too short. It's 1 inch too short to engage both of the keepers, the first fixed keeper and the second sliding keeper. So for an 8-inch wrist, this would need to be 1 inch longer. However, I'm not going to be critical, because I appreciate for the majority of collectors with a 6 to 7.5 inch wrist, this will suffice. You can size it down to a minimum 6-inch wrist size up to a maximum 7.5 inch, so there is enough adjustment. Buckle on the deployment is correctly proportioned, plenty of meat to it, nice heavy gauge, no sharp edge to the top edge or the low edge, and the black PVD coating is excellent. Now, needless to say, this is a top heavy piece, does dominate the wrist, and it's too thick. 17.2. I've reviewed over 500 pieces on my channel. This is the thickest, and this is thicker than the SAR Bomber, which I previously reviewed, and of course that has a very thick case as well, because it's, again, it's tonneau case, it's Richard Mille style, but that's in stainless steel. This does lack heft, despite it being a very tall piece and very large, so 43.5, and it is very thick at 17.2. If this were made from stainless steel, it would be well in excess of 170 grams, far too heavy, above the 150mm sweet spots that I often refer to. 135 grams is 15 grams below the 150 sweet spot, so it's surprisingly lightweight, but not balanced. That's the point. It feels like a thick block of 316L grade stainless steel. Now, I appreciate the bezel, which is tonneau shaped, is carbon fibre. The case back is carbon fibre. That does reduce heft. But the mid case is 316L grade stainless steel, and they've made the mid case too thick. Yes, I appreciate this is an homage to the Richard Mille 6702 automatic sprint, which of course is tonneau cased, and it is a thick piece, but it's not 17.2, that's the point. So there's no reason for it to have this amount of depth to the slab-sided flanks. They should reduce the meat of the mid case made from 316L grade stainless steel. Ideally slim this down to below 15, because that would make it more wearable, but it will still look like an homage to the Richard Mille 6702 automatic sprint. So it's a very thick piece. Now I would say to you straight away, this is clearly intended for 6 to 7.5 inch wrists because of the length of the strap. But if you have a 6 to 7 inch wrist, you're going to find it's too large. It does dominate the wrist. It's far too large for a 6 to 7 inch wrist. Really, it's best suited to a 7 to 8 inch wrist size, but then you're limited by the length of the strap, which of course 7.5 is really the maximum it will support, because it's an inch too short for my 8 inch wrist, as you can see. So really, this is only suitable for a 7 to 8 inch wrist, and I think ideally 7 to 7.5, because the strap will only take up to 7.5. But in terms of proportions, the vented FKM floor rubber strap does have the same profiling. We've got scallops or recesses in the flanks as per the Richard Mille 6702, and also the same vent shape. The cutouts or vents are the same as the Richard Mille, so they've done a good job. It does visually look very similar, albeit far thicker at 17.2. Needless to say, this is not going to easily slip underneath the shirt cuff if you wear business shirts. You'll know from my previous reviews, 30mm and below is the sweet spot. At 17.2, this is 4.2 too thick. So you're not going to be able to get this under a shirt cuff, that's the point. It does feel like a top heavy piece. It feels like a thick slab of 316L grade stainless steel. And the FKM floor rubber strap, although it is tapered and does have plenty of meat on it, and of course we do have a nice heavy gauge to the buckle and also the deployance, it doesn't add enough heft to balance the head of the piece. It really does feel like a very top heavy piece, and of course that's compounded by the thickness, 17.2. On a positive note, it does have a compact lug to lug, which is surprising. 43.5. Now visually it does look like it's got a longer lug to lug because of the integration of the end of the integrated FKM floor rubber strap, because that does fit into the tonneau case, and of course that does it effectively extend it, but the actual lug to lug of the case back, carbon fibre case back, is 43.5, so that's well below the 48mm sweet spot often referred to. So it actually will fit a 6 to 7 and a 7 to 8 inch wrist well with a compact lug to lug, and the curvature of the FKM floor rubber strap is good, because you can see we don't have a large abhorrent gap beneath the curvature of the FKM floor rubber strap, and also the case back is flat in the centre, but the ends of it do actually curve slightly to wrap around the wrist, and that closes up the gap. So fit of the case is good. Lug to lug is compact. Yes, it's large diameter at 43.5. One has to be magnanimous about that, but there is only one dimension which they've made an error on, and it's the thickness, 17.2. This needs to be 15 or below to make it more wearable, more comfortable. That would enhance comfort level and feel good factor, because you can see it does have very tall slab sides to the flanks, and that's down to the mid case, which is made from 316L grade stainless steel and then black PVD coated. It's a good 2.2mm too tall, and they could reduce this very easily, because this skeletonized movement and the skeletonized dial, the bridges, they do not need so much clearance beneath the tonneau crystal, which is curved on the top side, curved on the underside. So we've got excess clearance, and they could reduce this quite easily by 2mm to bring it down from 17.2 to 15.2. And the case back is flat enough, that's good. They could simply slim down the mid case, that's the point. The curvature of the bezel, which is carbon fibre, is good, but they just need to reduce the mid case by 2mm plus. So top heavy piece. Now visually it does look aesthetically pleasing if you like the Richard Mille 6702 automatic sprint worn by Wayne van der Kerk, as I've detailed. Same South African colours on the dial, and also green and yellow moulding to the carbon fibre as per the original. Also FKM floor rubber strap. Now to clarify, the original Richard Mille 6702 automatic sprint actually comes on an elasticated strap, not an FKM floor rubber strap, but this is Richard Mille style with the vents and also the scallops or recesses in the flanks. So visually it does suit the aesthetic of this being a Richard Mille homage, although strictly speaking the 6702 automatic sprint doesn't come on a rubber strap like this. So top heavy piece, yes it is okay on my large 8-inch wrist, but of course strap isn't long enough. I think really it has to be for a 7 to 7.5 inch wrist size, because if you're below 7.5 inches you're going to find it to be far too thick, far too top heavy, and again you can't wear it if you're 8 inches plus, because you can see strap isn't long enough, that's the problem. I'd like to see Geya make a longer strap. If this were 1 inch longer, of course it would suit 8-inch wrists, because of course this is going to appeal with the wrist presence and the domination of it. This is going to appeal to collectors with a larger wrist, and with a 43.5 diameter, one has to expect collectors with an 8-inch wrist to want to wear this. It's really going to be ruled out by collectors with a smaller wrist of 6 to 7 inches. 7.5 really is the only size that this will fit, because it's too large for a smaller wrist, and then the problem is with a larger wrist the strap is too short, so really it only fits a finite number of collectors. Between 7 and 7.5 inches really is the optimum. So satisfying piece in terms of visual aesthetic. Visual impact is good. AR coating works well for the tonneau crystal. I do like the South African flag colours on the dial, they add interest. And credit where credit's due, they've done a very good job of moulding the green and yellow stripes into the carbon fibre, and there's no sharp edges to the flanks of the bezel, so it's actually a very well finished carbon fibre case. The stainless steel screws are mirror polished to a good standard, and the dial is surprisingly easy to read because we do have the applied indices, which are circular, around the edge of the skeletonized dial, and also the skeletonized hands have lume on the ends, which make the legibility better. And it is actually surprisingly easy to read once you become accustomed to looking at the skeletonized hands. It is distracting to have the South African flag colours because, of course, that makes it more difficult to read rather than just using the anthracite skeletonized bridges as an alternative to the dial, but they've done a good job of it. The execution of the dial is good. Visually it does look similar to the skeletonized dial of the Richard Mille 6702 automatic sprint. Very close to it, albeit far too thick. So, not really a comfortable piece to wear due to it being top heavy, and it's not down to the heft. It's not excessive at 135 grams, but it's just too thick. That's the point. Right, so let's do a lume test and we'll see how the lume performs when it's charged up to the absolute maximum. So as always, I'm going to use my 100 UV LED torch to charge it up to the absolute peak. So this has C3 superluminova on the applied indices and also the skeletonized hands. Right, so that's now fully charged, and as you can see, it is okay performance. Potency of the exciter is okay, perfect colour tone match in daylight, white on the applied indices and also white on the tips of the skeletonized hands. So they don't look more cream or white in daylight, and the green tone of the C3 on the indices matches the green tone on the skeletonized hands. However, I think we're looking at a maximum of 3 to 4 layers here. We're not looking at 5 to 6, which is the industry standard for good reason. Potency of the exciter therefore is stellar. There is room for improvement. However, one has to be magnanimous here because it is difficult to apply 5 to 6 layers on skeletonized hands, and as you can see, they have also added 2 stripes of C3 superluminova on these skeletonized bridges, which are in the colours of the South African flag, respectively. Problem with adding those 2 stripes, and I'll just shine the UV torch on it to clarify. You can see they've added these 2 stripes of C3 on the top and the lower bridges of the skeletonized movement, which are coloured in the South African flag. So top stripe is red, lower stripe is blue. Yes, does add interest, does look aesthetically pleasing, as you can see. Problem is it distracts from the tips of the skeletonized hands, which are also the same C3 colour. And you can now see, when I take away the torch, it makes reading the time very difficult because you're now looking at the tips of the skeletonized hands, but you're actually looking at those 2 stripes, the top stripe, which is red and C3, and the lower stripe, which is blue and C3. They are looking like hands in the dark. So I think they should have deleted the C3 from those 2 stripes, the red and the blue stripes on the skeletonized dial or skeletonized bridges. Because you can see, they look rather like hands, and therefore it makes it more difficult to read the shorter skeletonized hour hand and the longer skeletonized minute hand, the tips. Because those 2 stripes on the right hand side, they look rather like hands in the dark. You can see the problem. So they should simply delete the C3 from those 2 stripes, and of course that would improve legibility. But nonetheless, I think we're looking at 3 to 4 layers. We're not looking to full 5 to 6. There is room for improvement. One has to be magnanimous because it is difficult to apply 5 to 6 on skeletonized hands because you're only looming the tips, you're not looming the full length of the hour and minute hand. The other thing is one has to be magnanimous about dots or circle applied indices. They don't allow for a large area or a large plot as per rectangular indices used on a dive piece such as the Submariner or Submariner date. So I think the lume performance is okay, but they've made that area with the 2 stripes as I've detailed. The hands would be better if they were fully loomed rather than skeletonized, which is a given, but of course one has to appreciate this is an homage to the Richard Mille 6702, and of course that also uses skeletonized hands and a skeletonized dial, so they're trying to make it as close to that as they can. It really is subjective. It comes down to, do you want it to look directly like the Richard Mille, or do you want it to have fully loomed hands versus skeletonized and therefore perform better? So as you can see, it's okay, but there's room for improvement. 3 to 4 on the indices, 3 to 4 on the hands, and you can see the potency of the exciter on the indices is better than the hands. So one could say possibly 2 to 3 layers, but definitely not 5 to 6. So they need to improve upon that. Right, so let's discuss the movement used. Now just bear with me, I'm going to undo the deployance, and then you'll be able to see it better. So as you can see, you can't really see the calibre because it's an automatic with a rotor, but as I've detailed, the rotor is hidden beneath this fake plate with the fake gears, which are of decorative purpose. The jewels are also fake, they don't actually work, but it's just done to make it look like the Mille 6702. Now, as I've detailed, Geya call this the Calibre 3A automatic, but they don't give the specifications on their website, geyawatches.com, but I've researched this as far as possible. I don't know how many joules are in the calibre because I can't see it, and the other thing is they don't specify it, it's unknown, but I can tell you it runs at 21,600 vibrations per hour and a frequency of 3 Hz, has a 40-hour power reserve, which is perfectly acceptable, has hand winding and hacking, which work well as I've demonstrated, and it's a no date complication calibre, so therefore the benefit is there is no phantom date setting position on the crown. Don't know what the stated accuracy is because, again, they haven't identified the calibre and they haven't stated it either. So I can tell you this is running consistently at plus 10 seconds per day when it's fully wound to its maximum 40-hour power reserve. So power reserve is okay, accuracy is okay. I think it would look better if they deleted this fake plate with the fake gears and the fake jewels and just showed off the calibre and showed off the rotor, because it's an automatic. It's always pleasant to see the rotor spinning round beneath the sapphire crystal exhibition case back. Yes, one could argue it does look like a Mille calibre, and of course the orientation of the gearing and the skeletonization does make it look visually similar, but I think it would look better just showing the movement that they're using, the automatic. So it's subjective. It comes down to whether you prefer the movement to look like a Mille calibre or whether you actually prefer it to just look like the movement they're using. But in terms of finishing, it's good. And the mirror polishing to the gears and also the brushed satin finishing to the plate, as well as the 4 screws securing it to the skeletonized bridges, is good. So they've done a good job of finishing it. And really one could say aesthetically it looks good, although one can't really see the rotor. So I think it would look better if you could see the rotor. 40 hours is okay, hacking works well. The only negative, as I've demonstrated, is when you pull out the crown to the time setting position like so, and it is difficult to do with a glove, but I can do it. When I push it back in to restart it, you can see sometimes the contrasting arrowhead tip to the second hand, it does begin to sweep around at 3 Hz. Sometimes it remains static and you have to tap the left hand flank of the case to get the rotor to spin, and of course then the movement restarts. So it really varies. Sometimes you push in the crown and it always restarts, sometimes it doesn't and you have to tap the case to get the rotor to spin and then it starts. That's something to be mindful of. So I have concerns about the long-term reliability of it because it's unproven and I don't know what the calibre is. All I know is that it runs at 21,600 vibrations per hour, 3 Hz, 40-hour power reserve, 10 seconds accuracy, hand winding and hacking works okay. When I say okay, that's when you push it in and it restarts. When you have to tap it, I don't consider that to be okay, but it does work nonetheless, and plus 10 is acceptable for a daily wear piece. So lastly, I'll summarise the piece. What do I think of it overall? Well, when I'm considering reviewing a watch on my channel, the watch meets 2 criteria. It should be both excellent quality and excellent value at the respective price point. So price point is $500 US, which is €431 respectively. So low tier piece, low tier is €0 to €500 respectively. Quality of this piece overall is good. Build quality, quality control, materials and finishing are good. They've done a good job of the carbon fibre. They've done a good job of the black PVD coating. So build quality is good, but my concern is the movement because it's unknown. I can't make comments on the reliability, I can't identify it, and Geya don't specify it. That concerns me. So I cannot say, well, this has been in service for 5 years, the reliability is proven beyond question, etc. That's my concern about the calibre. They've hidden it, and when a watch band doesn't specify a movement, generally it's a negative. So that's my concern. Reliability, accuracy is okay, 40 hours is okay. In terms of value, I think $500, which is €431, it's expensive. Now, yes, I do appreciate it's made from carbon fibre, the bezel and also the case back, that has production cost. One has to be magnanimous about it, but I'd like to see the price point of this far lower. I think below €200. 431 is expensive, and I think they need to improve upon the C3 Superlume Nova, as I've detailed, but it's not to my personal taste. However, if you like Richard Mille pieces and you like the Richard Mille 6702 automatic sprint worn by Wayne van der Kerk, yes, of course you'll appreciate this. The FKM floor rubber strap is soft and supple, it is comfortable, and it is a good looking piece if you like the Richard Mille style. And of course, if you appreciate the 6702 automatic sprint, the aesthetics, the South African flag and the yellow and green moulding of the carbon fibre. So, yes, it's aesthetically pleasing. Comfort level and feel good factor, they're not good due to it being far too thick at 17.2. So, difficult piece to weigh up subjectively, but I will say the quality is okay. Value, I'm going to say, is poor because it needs to be reduced to circa €200 or below to have good value. At €431, I think it's too expensive. And I think in order for it to be excellent quality and excellent value, or good quality and good value, it would need to have a higher grade of calibre, such as a modified Miyota 9015, for example, or Miyota 9039, because then you could justify the price point, €431, regardless of it being made from carbon fibre. The problem with an unknown movement like this is the reliability, and I prefer to see a branded movement. For example, a Seiko or a Miyota calibre which has been modified, or a skeletonized movement, but a branded movement that you can then say, well, this is based upon an 8215 or an 8315, or it's based upon an NH38. Then you have some benchmark with regards to reliability, because generally modified Miyota and Seiko calibres are incredibly reliable. What I dislike to see is unknown Chinese skeletonized movements like this, especially when they're hidden beneath a plate with fake gears like this, because my concern is, why hide it? Because if it's a good quality Chinese calibre made by Hangzhou, for example, there's no reason to hide it. And of course, people would like to see, collectors would like to see the rotor spinning round. It's an automatic, not a quartz. So that's my concern about Geya hiding the movements, and I would like to see specifications detailed on their website, and I'd also like to see the base movement. For example, is it a Hangzhou calibre that's been modified for Geya? Because that would reassure me with regards to long-term durability. But in terms of execution, the one thing I didn't do is check the clasp. So let's check the hinge pins finally, and then I'll summarise it. So left-hand hinge pin articulates freely, doesn't feel stiff or kink, has excess play. Right-hand hinge pin articulates freely, doesn't feel stiff or kink, has excess play. And this strap end has excess play, and the buckle end has excess play. So as one would expect, left hand outer, left hand inner, right hand inner, right hand outer, all four hinge pins are sloppy. But on a positive note, black PVD coating to the leaf spring deployment works well. No sharp edges to the top side or the underside of the flanks. Corners have been deburred very well. Quality of the black PVD coating is good. So it works well, albeit it does have too much play. So overall, I'm going to declare it okay quality, and I'm going to declare it poor value. So I hope you've enjoyed my review of the Geya G78065. Please feel free to post your own comments below the video. Thank you for watching.